He's going from The Daily Show to Washington's biggest night. Roy Wood Jr. is this year's White House Correspondents Association dinner headliner. It's no easy task getting a room of lawmakers, journalists, and celebrities, and traditionally the president, to laugh. I caught up with Wood, who follows a long line of comedians who've thrown out their best political punchlines as the Correspondents' dinner entertainer ahead of his big gig. Roy Wood Jr., this year's White House Correspondents Association dinner entertainer. You're joining a long line of performers before you. Let's see, Bob Hope, Conan O'Brien, Richard Pryor, Jay Leno, Stephen Colbert, Trevor Noah, of course. What is your game plan for going into this year's dinner?
To follow the long line of daredevils and survive. That is the plan. I spoke with Hassan Minaj about this a couple of days ago, and he was like, okay, you need to know the layout of the room. You need to know where everybody's sitting. You need to know who's there so you can figure out what jokes. And I'm at a point now where I feel like just because somebody isn't there doesn't mean you can't get joked about. Like, avoiding the event does not keep you from being held accountable. And accountability will be on both sides for the record also. This isn't some Republican bash fest. I think it's fair to come into this with fair critiques about politicians, also the role that media plays, but more importantly, the blind spot that I think a lot of the American public have to the media. Because let's not forget about the whole purpose of the event also is to provide scholarships for young students who want to go into journalism. We do not know why. This event should be to talk people out of getting into journalism. That's what the event should be for. But let's not ignore the actual purpose of it. So, we'll crack some jokes, but I think somewhere in there, it's good to have something of relevance to say. This dinner is unique to me in that it's one of the few times that a constituent actually gets to speak to the politicians and they heard your message. You don't know if AOC read your tweet. She probably didn't. But she's going to be in the room tonight. I want to say something to her for you. Like, just, give me the message you want me to say to the politicians.
Have you been to the dinner before? What did you know about it going into this?
I went last year with Trevor Noah just to watch him do his thing. And that was my first time being in a room of that magnitude, with that magnitude of, powerful people. I think the only thing I've been in even close to that powerful, I performed for Nick Saban and the University of Alabama football team. But that's a different type of power. Also, that performance was in Tuscaloosa. No, it's interesting to see all of the different people there. And also, what's cool about the Correspondents' Dinner is seeing the hierarchy of celebrity within celebrity. Because, like, just Joe Blow, oh, that's a celebrity. Oh, it's you. But then you'll see Chris Tucker and Tyler Perry and Gayle King, and then Ted Cruz walks by, and then everybody goes, oh my God, that's Ted Cruz. It's like, who's more important here? Like, what are we doing? But it was fun to see. Trevor had a great set, I think. And, I'm just excited to be around, all of these different politicians and policymakers. But, at the end of the day, I don't think that any comedian should believe that they're holding the golden joke that will change the fate of democracy. I don't think that exists within comedy. I think the best you can do as a comedian is hopefully change the way that people look at something. And then hopefully through that, maybe they seek out more information and maybe they have a change of heart on something. Or if nothing else, you understand where someone else is coming from. And I think that's the perspective I've always tried to have with my stand-up. And so I don't plan to approach this night any different than any of my other hour specials that I've done thus far.
You were actually a broadcast journalism major at Florida A&M University. Yeah. The White House Correspondents Association, when they announced that you were going to be this year's headliner, said you bring a journalistic eye to your comedy. You joked earlier that you're trying to encourage people not to go into journalism. Why did you go into comedy rather than journalism?
Comedy is journalism to me. I think the difference between a stand-up comedian and a journalist is that a comedian gets to choose all their stories. And, comedy to some degree, you're either reporting on yourself and your own human condition, or you're analyzing the human condition of other people around us and offering perspective on that. So it's part journalist, part pundit. It's journal undit. That's not a word. We're trying. I think that so much of the reporting, so much of the foundations of reporting apply to a decent joke. You want to fact check it. You want to make sure that it's something that addresses the who, what, when, where's of everything and provides information. I think a comedian's job is to provide information and then provide perspective.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the dinner, you're poised to follow President Biden, who has said he will be attending this year, unlike former President Trump, who famously skipped the dinner all of his years in office. Is following the president, is that a blessing or is it a curse? Is President Biden funny?
I think it's a curse. He was funny last year. Trevor Noah was cutting jokes from his set while Biden was speaking. Like in real time, Trevor was going, "Oh, well, I had a joke about that subject from a similar angle." Delete. Which is why now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what are the jokes or who are the people that Biden might, take a little side, a little shoulder check at, that if he does it, well, I don't want to be the same person to talk about that person too. Because the other thing you have to think about now with comedy, it's not just whether someone will laugh, but how can this be twisted to fit whatever narrative I'm pushing on the backside of this? And God forbid one person get joked about twice and everyone else got joked about once. That person's going to scream bloody murder that they were picked on. And then the next thing you know, a clip of me is going to be in an email blast where they're asking for $7 to help them join the fight against the comedians who picked on me at the so there's a lot of different things that are going to be going into the jokes, but I know, following President Biden is going to be probably difficult because I think he's funny. I think he has comedic time. He showed that last year with Trevor.
So you're fully expecting some political candidates to be fundraising off of some of your jokes this year?
1,000% someone is going to take a joke that I said at that dinner and go, "See, they're attacking me and they're picking on us, and you need to give me $12 because you're not smart, and I'm going to take that money because you weren't going to do anything with it."
Well, the dinner, as you know, has created some controversy. Michelle Wolf ignited a firestorm with her set back in
Smoky Eyes.
2018. Do you expect to be as controversial?
I don't expect to be as controversial. I don't think Michelle Wolf expected to be controversial. I just feel like Michelle Wolf wrote a joke and then people were like, "Ah, how dare you." I do think as a comedian, your only concern can be writing the joke and performing the joke. You cannot dictate and decide how someone takes the joke. So I have nothing that I'm writing up right now that is sitting in the clip going, "Yeah, I can't wait to dunk on that person." It's just jokes. And if I offend you, just know that wasn't my intention. The only thing that I know for sure that's off the list right now is Mitch McConnell. If he's nursing himself and trying to get healthy, okay, let's put the Mitch McConnell jokes in our back pocket. And in the meantime, let's hope that Clarence Thomas stays healthy till April 29th. I don't want to take him off the list.
So
it's fine. Clarence Thomas won't see the Correspondents dinner. He'll be on the yacht. He'll be okay.
Moving on to a big story today. One of America's Supreme Court justices is in a major corruption scandal. And you'll never guess who. Okay, it's Clarence Thomas.
Anyone and anything is on the table except for Mitch McConnell.
As of right now, the health of people, I think, is, there's rules. There's rules to war. That's all I'll say. I just think that there's rules. But, I just don't think that when you have an opportunity to kind of offer a State of the Union from the perspective of a constituent, that just because someone isn't in the room should not mean that you shouldn't speak to what they've been doing and the sphere of influence that they may have on democracy in this country, especially when the newsmakers and the people who literally The Correspondents' Dinner is a room full of people who literally get to decide what should be discussed today amongst voters. So just because someone isn't there doesn't mean that they should not be mentioned. So this whole idea that by not showing up, you can't talk about me. Believe that if you want.
You guest hosted The Daily Show recently. You joked during your guest hosting gig that you might be canceled for one of the jokes you told. Are you worried about being canceled after the dinner?
No, I'm not worried about anybody that's upset about a joke that I told. And I'm not worried about whatever opportunities and doors that may close because of it, because there's going to be doors that will open. I don't think that any comedian in totality is ever going to get all of the people on their side with the joke. They just aren't. There are going to be people that are going to find holes in the joke and then decide that you are a mean man. And, I am poised on Sunday morning after the Correspondents' Dinner to go to breakfast with my mama and my child. I do not have an apology drafted up in the notes app. Don't plan on having one either.
A lot of performers I've spoken to over the years have said that the dinner is one of the toughest rooms that they've ever faced, that a bunch of Washington buttoned up types eating their rubber chicken dinners at a fancy hotel doesn't necessarily make for the best audience for a comic. But at the same time, this dinner is broadcast nationally. The clips get played from it the next day on all the cable news programs. How do you balance the two?
I think that it's important to, as a comedian, be truthful to yourself. If you're performing for the people change, their expectations change. At no point are you ever being true to yourself. The same goes for the people watching at home. I think that you want jokes that people in the room are entertained by, but ultimately you're performing for two audiences concurrently that both have two different comedic sensibilities. And even within the room is split between two different comedic sensibilities. There are going to be jokes that people just straight up aren't going to laugh at because it's about their group. So whether it's Republicans or Democrats or C-SPAN employees, like whatever, there's going to be people that are going to have a problem with something that you say. I haven't really given that much consideration. Will it be a tight room? Will it be a lot of stiffs? Absolutely. A lot of these people in there take themselves way too seriously, and my jokes aren't going to be the thing. My jokes aren't going to be the thing that gets the stick out of their butt. But if we can just wedge it out just a little. That came out wrong. But what I'm saying is that the room is the room. The jokes remain the jokes. And I don't think that there's any way that I could just placate to the people in the room without alienating the people at home. Because to me, the people at home are just as important because they're the ones who voted for the people in the room. And they don't have a voice. They don't have a microphone. They don't have an opportunity to look the president square in the eyes and ask him why he hasn't done enough interviews and then just start interviewing him, right? It's really an opportunity to be the voice of the voiceless, as a comedian. But, at the end of the day, I just think it's about having fun, making jokes, and hopefully if people are in a lighter mood, then it could change the way people deal with one another when they leave that room. If you can get somebody from across the aisle to look at the other side, to look at another table and see someone laughing at themselves and vice versa, then it's possible there's a connection that could happen later on after the fact.
Did we just get a little hint at maybe an impromptu Biden interview while you're up there on the
we'll see. We'll see. He has to respond for it to be an interview. Gotcha. Otherwise, it's just me talking. Otherwise, it's just me talking to a man that's eating his chicken.
You said you had spoken with Hassan Minhaj, who headlined the dinner a few years ago. Have you sought advice from anyone else?
Seth Meyers gave me a little bit of advice just in terms of a lot of the advice that I've gotten from people. It's been more technical than the actual what type of joke you should and shouldn't do. You know, Seth Meyers was telling me about pacing. Traditionally, my stand-up comedy, I talk very fast, and for some, that makes it hard to understand me. So you need to slow it down because, you know, for a lot of these people, they only have two black friends. They're not used to all the different speeds of black verbiage. I'm being silly, but like the Seth gave me a little bit of advice. At some point, I'm going to swing back around to Larry Wilmore. I know he ruffled some feathers with the N-word thing. Michelle Wolf and I are good buddies from, you know, just the New York comedy circuit and her time when she was a Daily Show contributor. So I'll reach out to her at some point. But I know a lot of this, you know, for me, I've thankfully done enough corporate gigs for a lot of different companies where people don't want to laugh and it's at 1 in the afternoon and the CEO ain't laughing. The one piece of advice that everyone gave me that I've talked to so far is that just know that if Biden ain't laughing, the next joke is going to have a hard time getting through. So the secret might be to get Biden laughing. So I might have to leave him alone and not interview him.
You're rethinking the whole thing now.
Yeah.
There mentioned how it's kind of an odd hodgepodge of lawmakers, like a Ted Cruz type, and journalists and celebrities. Is there any lawmaker that you really love to meet while you're here in DC?
Ooh, I wouldn't mind. It would be dope if I got to meet Justice Ketanji Jackson. That would be nice. That's a living history, you know, and I think that's something that you don't necessarily have an opportunity or access to on a regular basis. I would start there, and also Vice President Harris as well. When I was there at the White House covering the Warriors, when they came to visit the White House, and the vice president spoke at the big, you know, the jersey, you know, where you didn't help us win, but here's your jersey, politician moment. I was hoping to have a chance to speak with her in addition to the president, but we only had time to speak with one, and her day was packed. But that would be nice. I hope she's at the dinner as well. It'd be nice to just say hello.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Well, how you doing?
Now, quick question, Mr. President. The Warriors won in 2017 and 2018. Why didn't they come to the White House those other two times?
Well, you have to ask the other guy, but he doesn't work here anymore.
New boss, new rules. All right, well, thank you. Well, mystery solved.
The news moves at such a breakneck speed these days. Are you constantly writing jokes? Like, how far in advance do you have to kind of prep your material? And are you Xing things out as the news cycle changes?
Yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, if you'd have asked me 3 weeks ago what I was going to open with, I had a couple of lines about Chinese spy balloons. I don't even think anyone remembers that ever happened. And it was literally a month and a half ago. So you have to kind of ride the wave of what is trending. And that's what makes this dinner so difficult as well. And I think this is where a lot of comedians have to really buckle down and prepare for it, is that you're cooking stuff fresh, essentially the week of. There's certain topics and mile markers throughout the year that we could certainly talk about and we can address. But in the bigger scheme of things, in 1 minute, you could have a joke about CRT laws in Florida. Well, now those laws have been advanced. And then you could have a joke about abortion laws, but now states are adding more and more abortion issues on the docket. So it's like, how much worse has the problem gotten since the first joke you wrote? And then number two, how sensitive are people about the topic? And is the joke you wrote still the right joke to tell now that sensitivities have changed? You know, we had the same issue with everything that's happening in Tennessee with their state legislators and how, you know, they chose to expel 2 members of the legislature. Well, at the Daily Show, on the day that it happened, we had a bunch of hilarious jokes written at 11 o'clock in the morning that were about the possible expulsion. But once the expulsion happened, the tone around that story changed. It went from indignation to outrage to anger to a groundswell of support. And that's a different, when a topic becomes that, it has a different entry point into figuring it out. So I think that's going to be, probably the biggest thing, to figure out, and then who knows, Georgia might indict Trump the week of the Correspondents' dinner. Supposedly those charges are going to come down the pipe. Well, how does that change what I do? Well, it depends. How does the media cover the Georgia indictment versus how they covered the New York indictment? So there has to be jokes. I have jokes now about the indictment, of course, but how will it evolve over the next 2 weeks? We don't know. Trump may be indicted. Trump may just do another campaign speech. Trump might pick a running mate. We don't know. Anything can happen.
Do you plan on taking shots at lawmakers on both sides of the aisle?
Yeah, I think you have to take shots at lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Otherwise, you're not honoring the job. I don't think that we can sit here and act like both parties have been perfect in their duties of serving the American people. So if that's the case, yeah, I'm gonna Republicans lie, Democrats overpromise. I think that's probably one way to go with it. But we're gonna keep looking at policies and stuff that are in place, and then start trying to figure it all out.
You've been doing this a long time. Comedy is not new to you, but do you still get nervous? Do you expect there to be nerves before you get up there?
Yeah, I think so. I think nerves are an important part of the process. It lets you know that it's important and that it matters, and it keeps you focused on preparing, so that you don't have, a tortoise and the hare type situation where you don't take it seriously. I think it's a very, very important night, but I've had nerves before. I did Showtime at the Apollo. Nothing will ever be more nerve-wracking than that. A room full of 2,000 people ready to boo you. At least at the Correspondents' dinner, everybody's quiet, except for maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I can deal with one heckler. I can't deal with 2,000.
Do you have a plan for in case she is at the dinner and interrupts you?
Yeah, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. There are contingencies in place if there are hecklers. I said that sinister, like I'm going to have a sniper in the room. I don't mean like sniper, but I mean there are plans. There are plans.
All right. What a tease. You recently were a guest host on The Daily Show, as we mentioned before, garnered some of the highest ratings of any of the guest hosts so far. And you had Trump's indictment to deal with that same week that you were hosting, I believe. How did it feel to be in the hosting chair? And do you expect to be back in the hosting chair on The Daily Show?
I don't know about expecting to be back, but it felt great. If nothing else, it showed me that, oh, okay, I can do this. It is a breakneck speed. Like The Daily Show, sitting in that chair, just the entire day of planning the show is just an adrenaline rush where just everything is on 10, because you want to pick the right stories and you want to say the right thing about the right stories and you want to get the joke right, but also it's got to be within a certain amount of time because we don't have enough time in the show. We're always running out of time. So this idea of hosting, if not The Daily Show, something, yeah, your boy is on board. I'm fully on board with hosting something somewhere at some point. It was a lot of fun. Even without the Trump indictment, it was still a lot of fun to be able to sit there and just interact with just real people. And as a correspondent, you don't get the opportunity to really live in emotions in addition to punchlines, because that's not your job as a correspondent. Your job as a correspondent is to come in and be the tornado and then step out. Whereas now, as a full-blown host, it's like, oh no, I get to lean into the emotion a little bit. This is much better.
I'm sure this billionaire Republican didn't want to influence nobody. He just he just wanted to go on vacation with Clarence Thomas, because we all know that Clarence Thomas is clearly a bag of fun. Just be straight up. Who wouldn't want to pull up on Miami Beach with old CT? Come on, Clarence, we're doing tequila shots. Clarence loves tequila shots.
And back to the Correspondents' dinner, you said that last year, that Trevor Noah was kind of crossing out jokes as President Biden was speaking because Biden had already covered that material. So you can't relax, like kick back while Biden is speaking. Do you have to pay attention to exactly what he's saying?
The closer it gets to my time on stage, the more intense I think I will be emotionally. I'm shocked that Trevor was relaxed enough to hear anything that Biden was saying. I may not even hear any of the jokes because I would just be so tunnel vision and focusing on exactly what it is, I want to do.
And what do you hope is the main takeaway from this year's White House Correspondents Association dinner?
I think that we have to understand at some point, and I think bigger than just jokes, I think it's important to understand just how hard the media works to try and get this right, and just how much budgets and fiscal limitations are slowly suffocating free speech far more than any policy that's been put on the books by Republicans.
Roy Wood Jr., thank you so much, and see you at the dinner.
Indeed. Thank you.